Asterisk, asterisk, the clockmaker's curse, asterisk, asterisk. In a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills, there was an old clock shop called Wellington's Timepieces. The shop was run by an elderly man named Mr. Wellington, a skilled clockmaker who had spent his life crafting beautiful, intricate timepieces. The shop was filled with antique clocks of all kinds, grandfather clocks, mantel clocks, and delicate pocket watches. But among the clocks there was one that stood out, a grand old clock with a dark, ornate case and an air of mystery. One foggy evening, a young woman named Sarah, a history student with a fascination for antique objects, wandered into the shop. She had heard rumors about the old clock and its connection to a tragic event in the town's past. Intrigued, she decided to visit Wellington's Timepieces to learn more. As Sarah stepped into the shop, she was greeted by the soothing sound of ticking clocks. The warm, dimly lit interior was filled with the scent of old wood and polished brass. Mr. Wellington, with his gray beard and gentle demeanor, welcomed her and offered to show her around. Sarah's eyes were drawn to the grand clock standing in the corner of the shop. Its face was adorned with intricate gold patterns, and the pendulum swung rhythmically as if it was guarding a secret. "That's the Wellington clock," Mr. Wellington said, noticing her interest. "It's been in my family for generations. It was crafted by my great-grandfather and is said to hold a great mystery." Sarah asked Mr. Wellington about the clock's history, and he began to tell her a story that had been passed down through the generations. Many years ago, Mr. Wellington's great-grandfather, Thomas Wellington, was a renowned clockmaker in the town. He was known for his exceptional skill and craftsmanship. However, Thomas was also a very private man, and he harbored a deep sadness that he rarely spoke about. One day, Thomas's beloved wife, Elizabeth, vanished without a trace. Despite the best efforts of the townsfolk and Thomas himself, no one could find her. The only clue left behind was a single note from Elizabeth that simply read, "Time will tell." Distraught, Thomas threw himself into his work, trying to forget his loss. He crafted the Wellington clock as a tribute to Elizabeth, pouring all his love and sorrow into its creation. But despite his efforts, the clock seemed to tick with an almost mournful cadence, as if it were lamenting Elizabeth's disappearance. Thomas died shortly after completing the clock, and it was said that his spirit remained bound to the clock, waiting for Elizabeth to return. The shop had been passed down through the generations, but the Wellington clock had remained untouched, a reminder of the sorrowful past. Sarah was moved by the story and decided to spend the night in the shop, hoping to uncover more about the mystery of the clock. As the hours passed and the shop grew darker, the only sound was the steady ticking of the clocks around her. In the dead of night, Sarah noticed that the Wellington clock's pendulum had stopped swinging. She approached the clock and saw that the clock's face was fogged up and the hands seemed to be stuck at midnight. As she touched the clock's face, a sudden chill filled the room. The lights flickered and the temperature dropped. Sarah felt a presence in the room, and a soft, sorrowful voice began to whisper through the shadows. "Time will tell," the voice murmured. "Elizabeth is waiting." Sarah took out her notebook and began to examine the clock more closely. She noticed that the back of the clock had a hidden compartment. With a sense of anticipation, she carefully opened it and found an old, faded letter. The letter was from Elizabeth to Thomas, written just before her disappearance. It spoke of her love for Thomas and her wish to be with him forever. But it also hinted at a secret she had kept from him, a secret that had led to her disappearance. Elizabeth had been threatened by a dangerous man who wanted her for himself. Fearing for Thomas's safety, she had left to protect him, hoping that one day they would be reunited. Realizing the truth, Sarah spoke softly to the darkness. Elizabeth had to leave to protect Thomas. She wanted to keep him safe from harm. As she finished speaking, the room grew warmer and the air seemed to lighten. The whispering voice grew quieter, and the Wellington clock's pendulum began to swing again, its ticking steady and calm. The next morning, Sarah shared her findings with Mr. Wellington. He was deeply moved by the discovery and thanked her for uncovering the truth behind the Wellington clock. With the mystery resolved, the ghostly presence in the shop was laid to rest. The Wellington clock, once a symbol of sorrow, now stood as a testament to a love that had endured despite the trials of time. Sarah's account of the clock's story became a celebrated article, and Wellington's timepieces was preserved as a historical site where visitors could learn about the clockmaker's legacy and the timeless tale of love and loss. Sarah continued her work as a historian, inspired by the lessons she had learned from the Wellington clock and the stories she had uncovered.